Let's begin with NBC Steve Patterson on the ground in hard-hit Altadena, scene of the Eaton fire. Steve, let's start with more on those concerning winds. The experts at the National Weather Service, they've labeled this a particularly dangerous situation. That red flag warning set to expire at 3 o'clock today. What are firefighters waiting for until then? And if more fires should break out or pop up, are they prepared after more than a week of this fight?
Yeah, PDS is something we don't hear much. It's not a classification used often, meant to denote a particularly dangerous situation, something that's beyond the normal red flag winds that we normally have. It denotes low humidity and, of course, high winds. We're just starting to maybe feel some of the winds. Obviously, we've kind of been in a lull over the past few hours. This is toward the end of a 48-hour period where these winds are predicted to pick up. We've seen, because of that, a few brush fires, a few spot fires over the last few hours, maybe maybe a handful or so of them, but firefighters right on top of them. If it means anything about what could be the next firefighters immediately putting these spot fires out almost as they come up. We've had maybe a few that have crossed over about 50 acres or so, but as soon as they do, they are immediately contained and doused and put out. Now, if the winds get serious enough, no matter what kind of capability they have, it's going to be a tough situation just because of how much brush there is still to burn in this region. And we're talking about winds in the higher elevations, 50 to 70 miles an hour, lower elevations, 30 to 50 miles an hour. That is significant. Firefighters, as you mentioned, also stretched thin. They are still spread across these two major fires. Containment is not full yet, which means people are still waiting to get back into their homes. And until firefighters can put out all the spots, can make sure that the embers can't travel to a new location, create a new front of the fire, they still have their hands full. And it's really now about fatigue. It's about the shifts. I mean, a lot of these guys are working 12 to 24-hour shifts, and they have been since this fire broke out. So they do have the capability to do it. It's just a matter of the critical mass of, are the winds going to affect the firefight all at once in a situation where they can't get aircraft up? We'll see. Guys?
And you can just imagine people just waiting to learn if something else could happen today, along with some families that still don't even know if their houses are standing. In certain areas, I know it's too dangerous to allow people to get in and check out their houses, like where you're at in Altadena. How are people there responding? What are you hearing from community members?
I mean, of course, it's heartbreak, guys. Of course, like the devastation is endless. It is just every single street in this area that I'm standing. We could have put this live shot the next block over. It will look very similar because there are just rows and rows of devastation. Now, saying that, I mean, coming into a zone like this, we saw a number of donation drives yesterday, people opening up their homes to the community just to take in items like baby formula, bottles of water, canned goods, all for the community here. It's very tight-knit, particularly in Altadena. At the Palisades fire, it's a little bit different of a story. We saw rows of cars going back hours that were trying to get into the zone. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, it's just too dangerous at this point. It may look like just smoldering ruins, but there is still an active fire in these zones. And until firefighters, again, can put really a nip in the bud here, it's going to take some time before homeowners can see it. It could take weeks.
Yeah, Steve, we know federal investigators, speaking of weeks, maybe months, they're searching for what ignited the Palisades fire. Real quick, where does the investigation stand this morning?
Yeah, they're particularly focused on a ridge that is above the fire sort of operation and where they believe it may have started by point of ignition. They're eliminating sort of lightning strikes. They don't think there was any utility poles in the area. So, of course, they're looking at human ignition. That doesn't necessarily mean that it was intentional, but it is on the list of possibilities as they work to narrow that down.
All right, Steve Patterson in Altadena. Steve, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.